Well, welcome everyone. I'm here with Subhra Dutta. Am I saying that right? Your last name, Subhra?
Yes, you're
Yeah.
perfect.
So yes, it's Kevin Costain with Solo Landlords, and we're doing another podcast. And I thought it would be a great idea to bring in Subhra and talk about his eviction ordeal over the course of 3 or 4 days, and just sort of get a little bit more in depth into what happened there with him. And it's sort of a companion to the blog post that will come out. Well, they would probably be out by the time you're listening to this now. So yeah, so we'll just get right into it. Subhra, can you maybe give us a little background into what happened, what went on, maybe when this eviction was happening, like a little bit more on that as far as what a bit of background.
Okay, Kevin, thank you very much for welcoming me to this podcast. And as a solo landlord, I'm happy to bring forward all my experience to the benefit of the solo landlords so that they become well prepared to handle all the eventualities coming out of these unfortunate events. Okay, now in order to start my story, you know that it took about 10 months in order to come to an eviction stage. Now on 24th of January at 10 o'clock, this eviction was scheduled. So when we, and I think you were also included, we arrived at the scene better prepared in order to show some sort of unity from our family and friends to stand against these destructive tenants. So when we went there, we already saw the sheriff was already there. So sheriff asked me to prepare a sort of list which we want to discuss prior to the eviction. But by the time I reached to the sheriff said he has already went inside and he saw 5 people, and he has told them at 10 o'clock to leave. So when I got the opportunity to discuss, this house has multiple access and there are many hiding places, and also wanted to be very clear about the 72-hour rule which the landlord tenant boards have after the eviction is over. And I requested him basically to explain all these things in front of tenants. So knowing the tenants, I always expected there is going to be a violent repercussion on those things. So I wanted to be prepared, and prepared to an extent that sheriff is also ready to call the enforcement if it is required. So sheriff
did the sheriff actually work with you well enough? Like, did you guys,
yes, I'm coming to that.
Receptive to your ideas, and he actually was working with you?
Yes, I'm coming to that. And actually, okay. The sheriff told me with my questionnaire, you are a very detailed oriented person. I have never seen anybody asking so many questions. So I basically told him, so look, it is the safety of my house. And when I know there are 4 access to these properties, and there are multiple hiding places, and knowing the tenant for last 1 year and regular presence of the druggies in the streets, and some of them are criminals. So I prepared well so that when you leave, that means the sheriff leave, I have the full control of my house. Okay. And sheriff was really very happy with me at the end. And when the D time came, when the D moment came, he said, okay, this is time at 10 o'clock and let's get in. And he advised us, none of you should follow me at this moment. You should keep a safe distance. That's why Kevin and all my family members, including my paralegal, were in the porch. But I wanted still to witness what is going to happen actually. So I was outside of the main door through which the sheriff entered, but sheriff repeatedly told me, don't enter till I come out. Okay. So I followed his instruction, And after he went and told in a very firm voice, it is 10 o'clock, it is your time to get out. Okay. He told it
Yeah.
twice.
Do
He
you,
told
do you, do you have a sense that the sheriff felt that he was in any danger? Do you think the sheriff himself felt in any danger walking into that situation?
he
From your
got
impression?
he got all the information prior entering, because in the application itself, it was asked whether there was any violence, whether there were any sort of police presence previously, and all those things. That was in the application itself. So he was prepared. I provided all the information that this house is a druggy house and drug house. This house has many tenants living into it, but I gave maximum 4. But he in the morning himself witnessed there are 5. Okay.
So knowing all this information, he actually walked into the house and
Right.
you know what I mean? So that seems fairly it seems very clear that sheriffs are willing to go into something that seemingly looks pretty sketchy, right? Because if you're saying he knew all this information ahead of time, and then he still, like, I was there, I saw myself, he actually walked in the house and clearly demanded that the tenants leave the house. So I think that's it's an interesting thing to sort of point out when it comes to what to expect from a sheriff, right? And they clearly they have limits in terms of what they will do, and as I understand it, they will refer to the police in certain cases. But it seems like this sheriff, knowing everything that was going on, he was perfectly happy to go right into the house and talk to these tenants. Yeah.
That's why he repeatedly told me, don't follow him. He is prepared for the eventualities, not I am. So he was more careful about my safety. Okay. He said, do not follow him till he comes out.
Do you know if he was carrying a weapon? I couldn't tell. Was he carrying a gun or something, or a stun gun or anything?
I probably saw a, what is that called? That stick, which is a that stellar. What is that called? That stick,
like
which
a billy stick, like it has it's sort of a T.
Stellar gun or whatever. Yeah. So just sort of a stick, which sends some electric shock or something like that.
Oh, stun gun or something like that.
Taser gun.
Taser. Okay.
Probably, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I realized. Okay, because they also do not go unprepared. But I knew that in case of any eventuality, he would have called the enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, however, continuing with my story, so he went there, and I told him in everything, including the hiding places, in the backyard there is a trailer and all those things. So he went all through all of this, through all the cupboards and everything, and then came out and told me, now you can enter. Still, I asked him, have you checked the trailer outside in the backyard? Have you checked the garage and all those things? And he said, everything is okay, and you go on while I am standing. And remember that point of time, you and all my kids, my sons, and the paralegal, all of us have entered. And of course, that was the time, it was time to be horrified, looking at the conditions they were living in, right?
Right. And it was very horrific. Why don't you share your feelings as you first entered that house?
Yes.
So at the first moment that we went in there, what were you feeling?
Oh,
I was kind of gagging actually when I got to the basement. I was like,
look,
like,
while there was a joy, means feeling of celebration to get back my house, but I always knew the story is not over till it is over. And what may come in coming couple of days, that's 72 hours. So, however, with the feeling of what we are going to get back, with the horrible condition inside, with the stinky smell and the creeping bugs and all over, when we came out, that was the time I asked the sheriff to please explain the 72-hour rule in front of the tenants. And sheriff categorically told them, say, look, the tenants, you better leave the place and come back in 1 hour time. And from this point onward, that means the point when he put the notice on the door, he pasted the notice on the door. That was 10 a.m. And from that point onward, you have 72 hours and to take out your belongings, personal possessions and belongings in cooperation with the landlord. You have to follow the landlord's directives from now on. Do not try to enter the property without landlord's presence because that will constitute a trespassing. So you have to work with landlord and move out for 1 hour for the landlords to prepare before you come back again to start taking your materials.
Right. And this is all part of the story. But one thing that is, I think, worth diving into that's not really, in the primary story is the sort of the communication that happened in parallel during this 3 or 4 days where they're removing their belongings. Can you tell us a little bit about that communication that happened in parallel by text messaging and the text messages that you got from the tenants during this whole process? We know that they were belligerent in person. We know that they were rude and horrible, but there were probably a lot of text messages I didn't even see during this whole time frame. And there was this communication that was sort of happening at the same time. I wonder if you could sort of expand on what was going on there and what kind of messages you were receiving from the tenants.
Okay. Now, the first one, let me tell you that after 1 hour, when the tenant came back around 11:30, 12 o'clock, all of us were there, including yourself were there, right? And the tenant was definitely belligerent from that point onward because he has the feeling that he can continue living there for 72 hours in order to take their materials. Okay, but it is not that way. And he was challenging us on multiple occasions on that. Till the last time, till the last day, that means on 27th.
Even in text, he was telling you, "Oh, I plan to occupy this apartment for."
He was basically trying to show their knowledge of 72 hours is something that I will be for violating his rights. I will be put into jail and all those sort of things.
So were you getting text messages from Elizabeth, the mother, and also what was his name? Howard. Like, were you getting text messages from all of them at the same time, or was it multiple?
What I remember, I can tell you if I look at my mobile.
You don't have to let us know the number though. But okay. Totally, like they were all texting you
from both
abusive and rude messages.
But let me tell you when the text messages actually started. The text messages actually started from the second day, when I basically on the first day, when they were time set was 3 p.m. That means at 3 p.m. they have to leave, but they did not leave. So we continued staying there till 5 p.m. when there was a 911 call and 911 came there, and in 911's presence, they left the first day. Remember when 911 came, my son was blocking the road, and when 911 came, they were allowed to take their vehicle inside. Okay, right. Because I wanted to see their honest intention of taking possession of taking their belongings and possessions, which I felt was not adequate by simply bringing their small car, right? So there was
they were obviously more of the approach of making trouble as opposed to people that were trying to move out, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, you could tell this, and I think this is where the police involvement came in, and just this whole line of communication. Who in fact do you think that they were communicating with, sort of at the same time? I saw Howard on the phone with somebody a couple times, but I wonder, who do you think they were communicating with?
It is not whom I think. I actually know. I know actually whom they are communicating.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. They were communicating with the police at the same time. That landlord is harassing them and all those things. Okay. But coming back to the rhythm of my story, is that what happened when they came back and they were not getting access to my driveway, because remember my son parked the car little sideways so that they cannot enter, blocking the entire driveway. So he was very agitated and he parked the car on the very no parking roadside. Okay, that's when Elizabeth means my paralegal. My paralegal called the bylaw. So bylaw, it took a bit of time, and gradually in his agitation, when he was getting very aggressive, I called 911. So 911 came. So by around 1 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock, both the bylaw officers and the 911 came. And during that time, the 911 told us to remove the car, so that move our car, so that they can, Howard can get access to my driveway, which was followed. Okay. But the basic intention is that they knew that it was coming. They were not prepared with their trailer to pack their belongings. That meaning that they had no intention to leave the property. Okay.
Right. And of course, this is all in the blog. So we're not, it's great to go over this again, but this is all in the blog.
All on the blog.
I wonder when does it go back? You say they had enough time, but when was the first notice of termination that you delivered to these, or that you served these tenants? Like, how far back does that go?
Notice of termination. Notice of termination means you are talking about the very first N4.
Yeah, I'm wondering when does it, like, how far back, like when the first intention that you were trying to evict these tenants, when does that start? Do you remember?
That is mid-February 2022.
So they had a whole year
Yes.
Of prior notice and perhaps preparation, and yet they still were that was a surprise, right?
Kevin, I want to correct you here. I want to correct you here. Of course, they knew what they are going to do. From that perspective, they should have been prepared that eviction will be coming at some point of time. Maybe it has taken 1 year. But knowing their evil intention, they should have been aware, and they were aware. But they did not take any precaution, because they know the landlord and tenant board rule and how they will be protected. Okay, so they were banking on the grace of the landlord and tenant board, on the protection of the landlord and tenant board. And every time, every time after that, whenever we gave the payment arrangement, payment agreement, and all those things, including rent relief, I told them, say, look, I can relieve your rent if you leave by the end of August. Okay, I will not put anything. I'll give a good recommendation for you so that you can easily find out. No, they called us. They called us every moment to sign the document, but ultimately they backed off. Okay, they said, no, so they were banking on the generosity of landlord and tenant board and the government protecting them.
So you're sort of saying that their intentions were almost from the very beginning were to do wrong. Is that right? Pretty clear? So then tell me. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And that is the reason they stopped paying the rent from the very first month they entered the house. It's
crazy. That's crazy that they would. But so can you take me through some of the broad strokes of the screening process for this tenant? What do you remember of when you screened them, when you first saw them, when they first presented themselves to you? What can you sort of describe about your screening process? Maybe anything that you would probably have done differently, or maybe not, or I'm just curious about that. I think that is fine. Maybe a lot of people would be curious what that process looked like.
Oh, Kevin, that is fine. But if you want to talk more about the eviction, that is, I believe that is the current podcast now, more about the eviction. So
it's
that
it's not more about the eviction, because that's in the blog. This is more about the story, a little bit more context to, a little bit more depth to, because you're going to read about the eviction in the blog. And in a lot of ways, I feel like, if somebody wants to know deeper what this is all about, what else can we, knowing more than what's in the blog. We're not just, you could read the blog word for word, but this is more of like just to get a little deeper.
My due diligence about this tenant was on the basis of the document they submitted, that means their reference from here, remember that the man was working and the lady was in ODSP from some injury because she claimed she used to be a registered nurse and she suffered some injury from her tenants, from her patients. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Now, so she gave the document of ODSP payment. She gave the document reference of ODSP, her case worker. She gave and he gave the document for his employer, from his employer, and also from the previous landlords. Okay.
Previous landlords. Okay. And had you contacted all of the previous landlords that you got references for?
The last landlord.
The second
last landlord, they said they used to hold their own house in some far off distance. So I didn't, when they were claiming they were the landlords themselves, so I didn't check that. But the first immediate landlord, before entering my property, I spoke to them. And they said they're a very friendly couple and their marriage is for a long time and they are really very cooperative, pays the rent on time, which is a complete misguiding. Okay, because we read the story recently in Waterloo records, right, about their last eviction also. Okay,
is there anything else that you remember being misrepresented by them?
This was the story about landlord, and she said no, they are very cooperative. We don't reckon you will have any problem at all from this tenant. They're a good rent payer and all those things, which is complete misrepresentation of fact. Okay.
Right. And so that's the I guess the process of understanding where it starts and where it ends. And
yeah,
I imagine that over this last little while since the eviction, you've been sort of taking stock of how it all went down, how everything happened, how you might avoid another tenant like this,
yeah.
What you're going to do in the future. What do you think, and this is just out of curiosity, but I wonder, Subhra, what do you think that they're doing now, the tenants, now that they're out of the house, now that presumably they're not coming back, you haven't seen them on camera coming back. What do you think they're doing now? What do you think they're doing out there? What do you think their prospects for housing are? What do you think that looks like?
I will reply to this, then I'll go back to the other part of the due diligence. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I came to know from one of their friends that they were temporarily put in a hotel. Okay. In Kitchener area, and after that, because on the very first day of eviction, there are some incidents. Some incidents happened between her friend, their friends, and these tenants, and basically she very kindly sheltered them for one night into their house, and during that one night, all the 4 dogs littered the house completely and smoked the weeds whole night, and which resulted in a eviction or throwing out their belongings and throwing themselves out of their house. Though the friends continued to help them, but this what happened. Then they went to the hotel, and that also I came to know later. I do not have the veracity of these facts that they have been moved from the hotel also. So I do not have any idea where they're
that's crazy.
Where they're living. But the friend told me that Matthew, their kids come to her time to time to spend the night, and Howard is probably sleeping in his car, and he doesn't have any idea about Elizabeth, the lady. Okay.
Do you think these folks would end up in a shelter at some point?
They said that one police officer told me, they have enough places. They can find a place anywhere, some shelters. They may be in a very not good living condition, but that is what they deserve, right?
Well, yeah, that's another sort of
okay. Now,
but anyway, get back to your sort of due diligence
Okay.
So,
The
so
second, I actually progressed very sort of systematically. First, I spoke to the landlord. Second, I spoke to the employer. Okay. Now, the employer I have the letter. They gave a very good employment letter about him and also spoke very nicely about them. So, including this, that those he looked very frail, the man looked quite frail, but he is much stronger for the type of job he does. And he's very good with the people, he's very good in his job, and all those sort of things, which created more confidence. Okay.
mhm.
And third, and he's most importantly, he's very friendly and honest. Okay. Now, the third one, I went to ODSP. Now, here is a little bit of story I want to tell you that I did not go to ODSP to the same referee the tenant indicated in their application. I rather went to my own sources to know about this family. And there was a gentleman who had been keeping in touch with me for last 5 years. Whenever my property falls vacant, he will immediately call me and say, Subhra, I have a wonderful candidate. Can you please rent your property to us? But unfortunately, I could not work with him because before he arrived, that property was rented. It was in high demand area. You know that, okay? So we were never successful. So I contacted him. His name is Taylor Matthews. Okay. I contacted him and tell her there is a lady who wants to rent my house. How do you feel? She's a wonderful tenant and she has never been any problem and she has been paying rent. They're so friendly and nice. And you won't have any problem. And moreover, two of their sons, they are also having some government fund and some job. So the funding and all these things, they have enough income to pay your rent. So I asked him, do you know the rent? Well, yes, I know the rent, but you will not have any problem getting $2,000 plus rent plus utilities from them because they have over $6,000 of their income. Okay. So about 1/3 of the income as a rent is okay. Okay. So I took a little bit chance there, but at the same time, it is most of a sympathetic consideration I showed on them and on their words that certain things we trust. Say, look, we are 35-year-old married couple. We grew up our children, and I don't allow these children to sit idle, do nothing, and not pay rent and live on parental income. We do not allow that. So those sort of words created a bit of confidence.
I wonder your first impression when you the first second you met them. What do you remember? What you were thinking? Do you remember
First
what you were thinking?
impression was not good.
Not good. Oh, interesting. Okay.
It was not good because I wanted to avoid. Basically, I wanted to give more time to find another tenant.
Yeah.
Okay. So when they came with a well-dressed, and the lady was cycling actually. The lady was cycling actually. Okay. And she came and with Howard. Howard said, I'm coming from work, so I'm a little savvy. But the lady came with proper dress, with a cycle and all those things. So but I felt that they may be on the lower income group. So I was trying to get more tenants application. Okay. But this lady used to bug me every day on marketplace. Every day. Sir, what is the reason I will not get this property? You are such a nice gentleman. You are doing all this due diligence and your house is good for my 2 adult kids and all these things. I think you
even have a history further than the screening process. How far back does that go? You're talking to them in marketplace or talking to the woman in marketplace?
No, I never talked. They used to just put a little bit of chat and then telephone. No, okay. That is the period. I didn't go back after that. I didn't have any pre-history about their last eviction or anything into my knowledge. Okay. I didn't have anything. I didn't read the report of the Waterloo records.
I wonder, did you Google search them at that time? Did you know?
No, unfortunately, no. I didn't Google search them. No,
Yeah.
no.
With my own tenant, by the way, I did the same. I didn't Google. I feel like I should have, but I didn't.
Basically, Kevin, what happened? I always used to, even now, I believe in people's integrity. And
Right.
what is that integrity? Trusting people on their face value. And then basically, this is our old value system, which is still working with me. But now I have learned a very costly lessons.
Right. And so that brings up the final question I have is what is it that you feel you've learned from this experience? What changes would you say this brought out of you? Like what have you learned from all of this is kind of what's on my mind.
This has taught me to leave your kind heart somewhere while processing the rental application, because what it goes through is that, first of all, that is your last consideration for selecting a tenant. That is the one and only consideration for selecting a tenant. And once they enter, you have no rights. Okay, you have no rights. So keep your good human values out of it. Go there with a pure purpose of business. Do all the due diligence to the extreme extent where they can be upset also. Don't bother. Okay? Don't bother. Make them upset. Let them know what you are going through and why you are doing all these things. If they accept it, fine. If they don't accept it, unfortunately, government has ruined the trust factor. There is a trust deficit. So landlord is doing what is required to be done, and sorry if the tenant is offended for that. We cannot do anything.
That's right. It's risk, right? It's a
Huge.
risk factor. Like you're taking a huge risk. You're going to have to do more to cover that risk. Now, a lot of landlords will raise the rent because of the cost of the pain they go through. But no doubt landlords like yourself and including myself will do more and go over and above now with our due diligence because of the risk involved, right?
Yes.
Because,
and moreover,
any sign of a risk, any sign of a red flag for me, I would be like, nope.
Kevin, the unfortunate part of it is that every business has a risk. We do not have any problem accepting it. Okay, every business has a risk. But you go to Apple phone or you go to any ordinary grocery shop. Okay, if somebody steals their property, steals any item from them, they have a protection. They can call the police. They can get you arrested and charged. But here, landlords are free for robbery,
right?
By government protection.
They can do things like they can put in security systems, like trackers on the products, and then put these things, and so it goes beep 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 beep. If you're trying to steal something, a landlord can do nothing. When you have a bad tenant and they're stealing from you day to day, you can't do anything to protect yourself. It's completely a wide open, unlimited risk.
Kevin, my point is somewhere else. These looters, these fraudsters, scamsters, they are protected by law. Okay,
right. And that's
they are protected. This is the unfortunate reality of Canada's democracy. Even the police officers told us that you wouldn't find many police officers are in the rental business because we know it. That's why we don't want to go into the rental business.
It makes sense. They know better. They know that their own brothers and sisters wouldn't protect them in the case of a problem with their own tenants.
Right.
So
government
that's where it says a lot about whether anybody should be renting a unit in Ontario, right?
Government will basically leave no stone unturned to see a landlord comes to the street, but they leave no stone unturned to see the tenants can be protected into the landlord or dumped onto the landlord's shoulder as long as possible.
Right. And I think we're seeing a lot of that now with these delays of the tenant board and on and on and on, and the government's apathy towards the attorney general, and of course we need real fixes to these bigger problems of the government. But anyway, we're pretty much at the end of time here, and I just want to say thank you, Subhra, for taking the time to be part of this podcast, to just give us a little bit of more additional context to the blogs that will come out this week. And yeah, and I'm sure I speak for every solo landlord in wishing you well in the future, and of course the cleanup process, and on your reflection in terms of what's transpired. So
Kevin,
yes.
Kevin, can you allow me 2 more minutes to quickly summarize how the remaining 4 days of eviction, remaining 3 days of eviction went? I will summarize it in 2 minutes.
Well, it's already in the blog, but you can do it. It's no problem.
Okay.
There's no, yeah.
So on the second day, the time was set between 10 and 5. Okay, time was set between 10 and 5. So I reached there, but I didn't see anybody coming up. And whenever I send them the text message, your time started now, and I'm waiting in the site. Why don't you come? And there are many lies there. That is, oh, we are picking up our coffee and the trailer is coming and this and that. We are waiting for the trailer guy and all these things. So about 10:30 on 25th, the trailer guys came without these people. So I asked them, who are you? He said, I am Howard's, that came to take but I said them, I will not open the door without seeing the tenants, without seeing Howard family. Okay, but you can take things from outside and all these things. And I called the police also. So there is intrusion, and the police came quickly and took their details and all these things. And they came somewhere another 2-3 hours later. Okay. So then they, in the meantime, the trailer picked up few items and take it to the garbage dump. And they came and started jumping on me. Where are my stuffs? Who has taken these stuffs? I said, you were supposed to come here at 10 o'clock. You didn't turn up. However, these things continued. It tried to getting closer to the violence. I called 911, and 911 came quite late because those 3 days were quite snowy, very snowy. So I had to wait. They came. And again, at the end of the day, which was supposed to end at 5 o'clock, that continued till 7 o'clock. And ultimately 911 threw them out, said, look, your days are over. The landlord has waited much longer, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 2 more hours and go. The same thing continued the next day. Okay, they will not come on their time, and they will expect, always tell that we want a 72-hour notice to stay in the house, which that means they are trying to get. But I was very firm. I was very composed. I was firm. And looking at the support I was getting from police, maybe a little delayed, I had faith. The third day, same thing happened, and Howard started sending me very threatening messages, which I read to 911 over telephone. And 911 told me, you don't go to the property, you stay away and wait for us. And in the middle of the day, when a couple of hours have passed, they were losing their time. Fine, it is in their account. But all things again came very late in the afternoon, and they came, 911 came, they told, see, look, you are wasting your time. You are not cooperating with landlord. You move out, okay? So that day, with the final day story, which is 27th, at 10:08 a.m., they were supposed to end. But that day they came with two of, all day they were basically coming with their friends who were trying to help. But there are not much of initiative of getting things quickly. So on the final day, they refused to move outside of the Elizabeth. She was lying on the bed, crying, where do I live now on, and all those things. But still, she will not move out of the house in a gentlemanly way. The Howard came, threatened me, that incident of coffee, spilling the coffee over my face, my son's face. You saw that video. You can upload that video also. All these things happened till at 3 o'clock. The 911 came, took the assault charges from me, and you were there at that time while they dumped all their metal items, heavy metal items, to block my driveway. And when the police officer were very firm, and by the time somehow the trailer came, they moved everything from there to clear my driveway. And that went on. I left the place around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And in between, police and the rental housing enforcement unit, they all contacted sheriff and spoke to me because they were being motivated by the tenant story. But when they heard my side of the story, and actually rental housing enforcement unit was threatening me that you will be charged and this and that, I said, sir, you are just going above your line, so beyond your line. So do you want to hear my side of the story? And when they heard that I have cooperated much more than what is needed, basically, as per the law, I am needed to give only 3 to 4 hours every day during this 72-hour time. Every day I spent 7 to 8 hours every day. So when they knew my side of the story, they said, no, you are doing much more than required, but you are getting the wrong picture. I said, that is your problem. You are getting the wrong picture always. But the landlords have no rights, right? I used to be very tough with them. I also used to be very, sarcastic or tough with them. So this is the problem in the system. You are sheltering these criminals and rogues and believe the landlords are all evil, right? What is problem with you? I used to ask them this hard way. However, ultimately around 6:30 on 27th, my property was handed over. There have been incidents at night to midnight, or even early in the morning. When I reported to police always used to come very promptly in the property, and they said, we are watching. Every time any officer passes by your house, we are having a glimpse at it. Is everything okay?
Good. They turned out to be good. Yeah.
That relieved me. And that way I got the full possession before taking up the next step of the work. That means cleaning the house. Now it is back to its normal self, but I have to do a bit of work there before making it completely livable. That means changing the floor, painting, replacing the appliances and all those things.
Right. Well, you're well on your way, right, Subhra?
Yes, I'm progressing, but I basically am relieved and taking things little slowly. Okay, my children are saying, Dad, leave that house, sell it. Okay, no more in that. You have passed that age. Okay, and we are not grown into that culture, dealing with this sort of people.
Right. So there we go. So that would be good for now. We'll end the podcast. I really appreciate you spending the time to talk about your story and provide us some more additional context. And like I said, I wish you well. And we'll, personally, I'm sure we'll be in touch. But I'm sure every solo landlord appreciates you sharing your story in such depth, so they too can learn from what happened here and how things happen. So thank you again, Subhra. And
to end, I thank all the solo members for their kind-hearted, sympathies and support towards each other's causes. And it is very important to form into a local group to basically rein on these sort of fraudsters, these bad tenants. Okay, and some media groups have approached me. If I happen to get my final luck to have an interview, I will give it to Solo to you. Okay. I'll keep you informed.
Thanks, Subhra. And
thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Yep.
Thank you.